Batman and Robin number 23, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason. So, this is part 5 of the getting over Damian's death thing, which ostensibly should be Acceptance, which it is titled, but I thought that was last issue, which was where he went out with Catwoman. But regardless, we pick up here, and we are shown a flashback to the night Damian died. In Batman Incorporated, it's literally the same scene. Batman is like drowning in a safe in a pool, and Talia's just gloating, saying, I've taken everything from you. Except in this one, Batman drowns. He straight up just dies, and he doesn't get out of the safe. And we see Bruce jolt up awake. He's wearing VR headset, and apparently all this is a simulation that he's been running almost 500 times to see what he could do differently to save Damian. And we see standing in the background watching him run it again and again and again for seemingly 4 days is Alfred and Nightwing. And so he runs it again. He does things ever so slightly different, but once again, he just can't get down to save Damian in time from his cloned twin brother. Though we do see that Batman arrives at least enough to see Damian die this time, and he takes a bomb, blows up Heretic along with himself. And so he wakes up again, and he's like, damn it, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I gotta keep going. And Nightwing's like, hey man, Alfred called me. I'm currently doing a thing in Chicago, but I'm needed for this book, so what's going on, man? And he's like, no, Alfred, stop calling in people to try to help me. I'm fine. I'm going to keep on running this until I get it right. And he's like, all right, cool. Is it 2-player? And Alfred's like, dude, you were going to help me talk him out of it. And he's like, yeah, but he's not going to get talked out. He's Batman. When's the last time you talked Batman out of something? So I'm just going to jump in with him and see if we can do it together. So he hops in. Now it's a 2-player simulation. We see both himself and Dick running through it, seemingly doing the same things for the most part. We see everything here is identical up to a certain point where they do manage to get in and save Damian before he is impaled. And then from that point, the fight scene continues. We see them save the young girl who was in the room, Ellie, in a different way. And yeah, more or less the scene ends with the Heretic having a sword aimed at Batman instead, and Nightwing comes in and impales the Heretic against the wall. And he's like, well, we did it. We saved the day. And we see Bruce looking at his, virtual Damian. He's talking to Dick, and he's like, we did everything we could here, but it's still not enough. My son is still dead. And Nightwing's like, yeah, he is. But that's okay. And he's like, well, no, he left behind a black hole. Like, there's nothing left. And he's like, no, he didn't. He left behind you, a father who loved him very much, and he left behind all the memories that you have of him. Look, Bruce, regardless of what you think, regardless of how unfair you think all of this was, Damian knew what he was joining into, probably better than literally any of us, including you, because he was born for this. He was a soldier from birth. He understood what the job meant. Like, he went out every night and he knew what he was getting into. And Bruce sighs and he's like, I can live with his death, but I'm never going to accept it. And Nightwing's like, you don't have to. You're a father who buried your son. That is completely understandable. So at that point, they go off, and we see later on Alfred is standing over the computer and he plugs in some data. And he runs the next simulation. But instead of it being the simulation of during the battle, it's shortly beforehand where Alfred is told to keep Damian inside the cave, and Damian leaves. So we see him telling Alfred, like, oh, I'm going out there, I'm saving my father. And Alfred gives him his suit and says, like, oh, I'll tell him you overpowered me. And he's like, no need, I already have the access code memorized and all that. And he breaks his way out. And as he makes his way to the armory to grab a suit, he says, there's actually no way you could stop me. And so Alfred walks up to him, puts his hand on his shoulder and says, your father would be very proud. Turns out, though, inside his hand, he hid a tiny little tranquilizer that knocks Damian out, and he is unable to leave. And Alfred picks him up, and he says, like, oh, you'll be awake in 12 hours, but you're not leaving this cave. I made a promise to your father. So he picks Damian up, lays him down in the back cave, on a chair, and he says, I want you to know how proud I am of you, Damian, and how I'll never forgive myself for letting you leave the cave that night. And so back in the real world, Bruce is standing over Alfred. He's watching the screen, seeing how horrible Alfred feels for letting this happen. Finally, Alfred comes out of the simulation. He's crying and sobbing, saying that he's sorry. And Bruce is like, no, dude, I'm the sorry one. I didn't have the wherewithal to realize that I'm not the only one who lost a son tonight. And Alfred's like, can we please just not do this, like to have this machine or anything? And Bruce says, yeah, no problem. He turns it off and they both leave. It's a sad issue, man. It's a very sad issue, but it's good. It is. I like the idea that, you know, he had to go through all that stuff. He had to work out his anger. He had to go back out and like do something good and save like a young child and stuff like that in order to get to this point. Like we couldn't open up on this issue after Damien died and him just being like, yeah, I guess I'm good now that I saved him virtually. It's just the process he had to go through. That being said, viewing this as an entire arc, I do think that while this is an incredibly strong issue, it is kind of weakened by the fact of the previous issues either not feeling like they fit into the stages of grief at all. For instance, the Batgirl issue, it just seemed like more rage to me. And then the last issue with Catwoman, I think actually was a better capper than this one. I think this is the depression issue, and the Catwoman one is the acceptance one. The problem being is that it doesn't give that same punch with Alfred. And I think that punch with Alfred is really what makes this issue a great issue. So I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a solid 8. I'm debating 8.5, but I do think that a little too much of it is just exactly the same recap from that issue of Batman Incorporated. I don't think that it really does enough on its own to push it up to that 8.5, but still a very solid issue writing-wise.